Welcome to Good Thesis, Bad Thesis, the video that teaches you the difference between the two. Actually, instead of focusing on what a bad thesis is, which it seems counterproductive, I'm just going to focus on what makes a good thesis, since that's the only thing I really want you to remember. We always want to strive to come up with good theses in our writing, and here's a few ways to tell the difference. A good thesis is arguable, supportable, interesting, clear, and compact. For a thesis to be a great one, it must have all of these things. Now, you may be asking yourself, what do all these terms mean? How can I possibly make sure that I'm doing all of this for every single one of my writing assignment theses? Oh no! Well, don't worry, because I'm going to run you through an example of every single one of these terms. To help me out, I'm going to use an example that you should be all familiar with because I've been using it in the past couple of videos, and that is the example of Batman versus Superman. So be prepared. First of all, your thesis should be arguable. That means that your thesis should force a reader to say, hey, prove that. An obvious thesis, one that makes your reader go, duh, is not a good thesis. For example, the thesis Batman and Superman are superheroes not only doesn't answer the question, but it's so obvious that there's no reason for you to argue this one. It's not a good thesis. A good thesis is listed below, that Superman will win in a fight with Batman. Many people would disagree, but the disagreement can keep people reading. You want your reader to be engaged, angry, incredulous, suspicious. These are all things you want your reader to be. A bad thesis is boring, and bored readers are not readers for long. Your job is to keep them reading. Your thesis should be supportable. Let's think back to the last video with brainstorming. Your thesis needs to be based on your evidence. You can't pick an idea out of thin air and expect it to be supported. There are some phrases that are very difficult to prove, and these are phrases you want to avoid. For example, always, never, all, none. These are broad generalizations and are extremely difficult to prove. Speaking of extremely difficult to prove, a thesis like, Superman would win in a fight because Batman has a cold right now and needs chicken soup and a lot of rest. It's not something that you can prove very easily, or at all, for a whole slew of reasons, mostly considering that Batman is a fictional character, and you probably don't have any idea about his actual health. You want to avoid nonsensical or ridiculously unprovable theses. They may be clever, they may make you laugh, but for our academic writing, we want you to stick with what you can prove. Before you can make a thesis, you want to make sure that you have evidence to back it up. Remember our previous video. Start with your evidence. It will inform your thesis. Your thesis should be based on what you can prove with the evidence you collected. The more a thesis sounds like it came from your original thoughts about a topic, the more interesting it is, and making writing interesting is the name of the game. Remember, a bored reader is not a reader for long. It is your job to make your writing interesting while still being informative and accurate. Remember, a thesis is an argument and you want to engage your readers. If they want to argue with you, then you've done a good job, as long as your evidence is good, that is. Also, showing a personal connection to the material is a good way to engage the reader. You want to show your teachers and your peers that you have read carefully enough to have a personal perspective on a topic. If you're really clever, you can hook your reader with a really thoughtful angle on a topic. Real creativity, however, is beyond the realm of explanation in a video like this, or really otherwise. You must practice. Practice and take risks. Sometimes you'll succeed, and sometimes you'll fail, but it is often better to try to be creative and fail than to succeed mildly. Here I have combined clear and compact because they are closely related. You have to get to the point quickly, and in a way that most people would be able to follow what you're getting at. There should be no guessing games when it comes to your thesis. Even someone who knows very little about a topic should be able to follow your thoughts. The hardest part about this? You have to do it in as few words as possible. The ideal thesis is a single sentence. It can be two at the very most, but no more than that. You need to make your point and then get to proving it. So let's put this all together. Here is my thesis. Although they are both very powerful, because Superman has many more superpowers than Batman, it is clear that he would win in a fight. So how does this stack up? Some of you Batman fans out there might be a little shocked. Does it make you want to argue with me? It should! Does it seem supportable? Well, if we look back at my video on brainstorming, you can see how I used my evidence to make sure that thesis is provable. Is it interesting? Well, it shows you a personal connection, how the superpowers play into my reasoning. You can see where I'm coming from in my thinking and where I'm going to go with the rest of my paragraph. Is it clear and compact? It is certainly clear about who and what I am talking about, and although the sentence may be a bit long, it fits into one sentence all of the ideas that I'm going to talk about in the rest of my paragraph, and now I can get to proving that all of these are correct. Putting together a thesis with all of these characteristics, making it arguable, supportable, interesting, clear, and compact, is difficult and will take a lot of practice for you to get the hang of. I hope that this video has given you some ways to think about your thesis. You can always come back to it and check it out in the future when you get confused about it. For now, just remember these 5 things a thesis needs to be in order to be considered good, practice them, ask questions, and keep on taking risks.